thankful for what y'all do. And, you know, keep encouraging us and teaching us how to vote. Praise the Lord.
It's day 2 of Share-a-thon, and it's Founders Day on American Family Radio. We're honoring Brother Don Wildman and his wife Linda for their faithful obedience to the Lord and their example to us.
God doesn't require us to be successful. God requires us to be faithful.
Call now at 877-616-2396 to give, or at pledge online at afr.net. It's Founders Day on American Family Radio.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Share-a-thon. Welcome back to Share-a-thon, I should say, here on the American Family Radio Network. And thanks for joining us. I'm Tim Wildman. And joining me in studio is, if I can remember all the names of these people.
Ed?
Yes, Ed Vitagliano.
Hey, good morning.
Brad Jackson.
Good morning, Tim.
Chris Woodward.
Good morning.
And Jen Ellis.
Good morning.
Jen Ellis and friends.
And friends, Todd and Copper are back.
They're back. They're our Share-a-thon stars.
Our little mascots of AFA.
The little puppies are with us. For those who are watching on the video live stream, Ed,
I'm going to do what I do best, right?
It's all yours, brother. You knock it out of the park.
Are you making us pasta today?
No, but my wife
This is why I came.
My wife is making me pasta for tonight.
Oh.
It's opening night for my hockey team.
Right.
Nice.
So I'm eating pasta tonight and watching the Bruins. Anyway, I digress.
It's a good day.
It is a good
Vitagliano family.
So, folks, we do have a live video stream for this show and a lot of the talk radio shows that we have on American Family Radio. You can watch this one for the next 2 hours. It's a special 2-hour edition of today's issues because of Share-a-thon. You have 3 options now. You used to have 2. Now you have 3.
A plethora.
You can go to Facebook and search for today's issues. Click through. You can go to YouTube. Yes, we're back on YouTube. And
don't tell YouTube.
No.
I was going to say, I'm shocked we haven't gotten canceled.
We're keeping that a secret.
Yeah, we I think we followed through
comments.
the cracks. We are back on YouTube.
Seriously, we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you can go to our own streaming platform, streaming.afa.net. We'll never get canceled on that streaming platform. The only one, probably, but
this just in.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, so that's how you can watch us, and that's how you can see Todd and Copper.
Give us the AFA streaming site, if you would.
I did. Streaming.afa.net. Streaming.afa.net.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody who's called in yesterday or today, or maybe you sent your Share-a-thon donation via the email. Via the U.S. mail prior to Share-a-thon, because we did send a letter out a few weeks ago. Making that option available. So thank you, everybody who's shown their support for us already during this Share-a-thon on American Family Radio. As we've mentioned many times before, we are listener-supported Christian radio. So if listeners don't support us, there is no AFR. It's very simple. So I'm speaking of our AFR listening family, have always responded in such a tremendous way. And we want to thank you for that. And we know that you're responding again, saying you appreciate the ministry of AFR and you want to see us continue to go and to grow here on with our American Family Radio stations all across America, 179 or 80 or something like that. Depends on whether Walker sells or buys one on any given day that I don't know about. But anyway, we also have thousands and thousands of people who listen on our American Family Radio app on their cell phone or on their iPad or other device. So that's available to you. Just download the app, take you 60 to 120 seconds, and then you can listen to AFR anywhere you go as long as you have high-speed internet. Now, for those who are making a donation to American Family Radio, we have a bribe. Ed, would you tell them what that?
Well, first of all,
I am going to call it that.
I am going to give you the.
Abe is not here, but I will say, as the resident attorney that cares.
Yes.
Yeah, this is not a bribe; it's an incentive.
It's an incentive.
That's
yes.
a good way to put
the legal terminology. Here's the number to call, and then I will tell you about the incentive. All right. The number to
I
call.
love how he put it in air quotes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like a John Grisham novel. The Incentive by John Grisham.
The incentive.
Huh?
All right, here's the number to call, 877-616-2396. Again, it is our fall share-a-thon. The theme is Heaven Changes Everything. The number to call is 877-616-2396. As we tongue-in-cheek will say, if you don't want to talk to a person, you can give safely and securely online and talk to no one except yourself. And that is at afr.net. Now, here are the incentives. For a one-time gift of $150 or more. Tim likes those words. You will receive a CD of Hilarious Highlights Volume 9 and 10, the newest CD from Trivia Friday. It
9
is.
and 10, we put it on it's a combo
It is a combo. And that is from Trivia Friday, heard on American Family Radio. Or if you become a Great Commission partner, I'll explain what that is in just a moment. If you become a Great Commission partner with a monthly gift of $30 or more, you will receive not only the CD, Hilarious Highlights, Volumes 9 and 10. By the way, that's great for traveling. If you've got a long way to go, you can laugh on the way.
Some funny stuff on there.
Funny stuff. You not only receive the CD, you also receive 100 Bible Questions and Answers for Families, the new book from Dr. Alex McFarland and Bert Harper, hosts of Exploring the Word, heard weekdays on American Family Radio at 3 p.m. Central Time. Now, what is a Great Commission partner? Well, so glad you asked. If you give $30 or more every month on an ongoing basis, and you can give via a debit or credit card or
bank
draft, then you become a Great Commission partner. And not only will you get these premiums that I just mentioned, the Trivia Friday CD, the book, 100 Bible Questions and Answers, but you have access on our streaming platform to all of our content. There is a lot of content that's available for free for people, just for signing up. You open up an account, so to speak, with your name and an email address, and you can watch a lot of the content, videos, documentaries, so on and so forth. But a Great Commission partner has access to all of it. So the number to call is 877-616-2396. Again, it is fall share.
Also, with the way we have set it up with the bank draft or the credit or debit card, it makes it easy for people to give, and you don't even have to think about it.
Right.
You don't have to write a check, put a stamp on it, and get it in the mailbox. It's an easy way. If you committed to that,
right,
a gift to American Family Radio monthly, we just want to make it as easy for you as possible. So take advantage of that. It also helps us budget, right?
Yes, because we know exactly how much we got coming in.
All right, let's hear a listener testimony, and then we'll come back and get into the news of the day.
Yes, my name is David. I live in Borger, Texas. My mother passed away last year, and before she passed, she said, "Don't you listen to AFR?" Well, I'm a delivery driver, and so now I listen to AFR from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. My mom was an avid listener, and whenever we would leave the house, she would have a radio on. "Mom, don't you want to turn off the radio?" "Oh, no. That's air purifier." So she loved AFR, and it has been a great deal to her as well as to me. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Wow.
What a great story. Did he say she used to call it an air purifier?
Air purifier,
That's fantastic.
Yeah. She's a
I
saint.
like that.
She's a saint. She's going on to be with the Lord.
Yeah.
Living in heaven right now. I don't know if they get AFR in heaven.
I'm hoping there's no cell phones where you have to have apps
pretty
up
good
there.
choir there.
Get good news network.
I hear there. But anyway, American Family Radio, she was a wonderful listener there and got her son
listening,
and now he listens, and we just.
And that's very cool because I'm sure he misses his mom.
Yeah.
But it's a connection.
Yeah.
There's obviously it's his mom. He has plenty of connections, but as he's delivering and driving, he can feel connected to his mom because she loved it, and now he does.
Right. In Borger, Texas. All right, Christopher, bring forth unto us the news.
Well, quite frankly, the big story, the top story around the world is Israeli airstrikes on Gaza. This is all in response to that surprise attack from Hamas in recent days. Israel is, in Israel's words, trying to exterminate or eradicate Hamas at this point. They're saying they're done with Hamas. They're tired of being attacked on a regular basis by terrorists, and we'll get into the word terrorist here in just a moment. To give people an idea of where things stand this morning, body counts are going to vary by the news outlet, but CBS this morning had more than 1,200 Israelis dead, including 14 Americans. In terms of the Arabs in the Gaza area, you've got at least 950 people, including 140 children, killed in Gaza by Israeli airstrikes. But again, Israel says that it's retaliating for the frequent attacks by Hamas there. So a lot of bloodshed. The U.S. is paying close attention to what's going on there. In terms of our response, the U.S. is fortifying its military presence in Israel today. We've started shipping ammo, and as we mentioned yesterday,
we don't have boots on the ground.
Not yet. But there were reports that maybe a SEAL team is preparing to go in and try to rescue any American hostages.
Really?
Yes.
We were remarking before the show started. I don't know why news organizations are reporting that. You'd think they'd have more smarts than that.
You would think.
So you're not, and maybe they figure Hamas would expect that, but you certainly don't want to let them know you got a SEAL team on the way.
Mm-hmm. And who from the Biden administration is talking about military preparations? I mean, that should be done, and then you let the media outlets know after the fact. I mean, they're just so incompetent on so many levels.
That's a good point. That is incompetence. I mean, during World War II, there was an expression, loose lips sink ships.
Right.
And so when ships were leaving port, they would always try to encourage people, you don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. You don't talk about your shipping out. You don't tell your family where you're going, because that word can get over to the Nazis or the Japanese. And the same thing you'd think would apply.
We've all heard the expression, I've had it and I'm not going to take it anymore, right? I think that describes the approach now of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and the Israeli people.
Yeah, it has brought the political factions in Israel together. They have now formed a unity government. They were just talking about this, putting the differences aside, political differences, because Israel is under attack, and literally from all sides as of this morning. We still have missile fire coming out of Gaza. We have missile fire going in. This morning, Hamas terrorists extended that missile fire. The air raid sirens went off in Tel Aviv this morning. The Israeli Navy has now moved in, and so Gaza
blockade.
Gaza is now surrounded on all sides.
There are a lot of things here that are, and I use the word interesting for lack of a better word. I mean, this is horrendous what has happened, and adjectives don't come to mind that would adequately maybe describe the situation. But Gaza has been isolated already for years, okay? That Gaza Strip in the southernmost part of Israel that borders Egypt, it's a small strip of land, and the Israelis already don't allow boats or ships to come ashore on the Mediterranean to Gaza Strip, excuse me, without, this is my understanding, without being checked. You have to be checked. And so obviously the people there, 2 million people that live there, I understand, so they got to have food, they got to have medicine, they got to have living supplies, and they come in, as I understand it, basically through Israel, and perhaps through Egypt, I'm not sure. But so they don't allow, the reason they have to do that is precisely to keep what has happened from happening. And that's why it's a big question mark on where did they get all these rockets? How did they smuggle all these rockets in? My goodness, did you say that 4,000 or 5,000 or so?
Well, over the weekend, Hamas was claiming they fired 5,000. I think Israel was saying it wasn't quite that many, but it's thousands.
Really?
Yeah.
Israel's confirming?
Yes.
Well, yeah. Did they say 5,000 or what?
It was thousands.
Okay, somebody's going to have to get to the bottom of how these rockets got in there. Now, they could have been smuggled in through Egypt, through the Egyptian border, although Egypt is supposed to prevent that from happening because Egypt wants to keep the peace. You could have had rocket material smuggled in piece by piece.
Right.
That's a possibility.
There were reports yesterday Turkey is involved with that. Turkey is supplying some of the raw material for these missiles.
Are you serious? I didn't read that. Where did you read that?
And also, there were reports yesterday that the Turks are providing the Hamas terrorists with passports, with Turkey's passports.
Wow.
Well, that is
I'm speechless.
That's very strange because should the U.S. with one carrier strike group, and the expectation is a second carrier strike group is going to head in that direction. If we have a situation where the U.S. is fighting with air power alongside the Israeli Air Force, you would then have another NATO country, Turkey, supplying the enemy of the U.S.
Fred, I don't mean, I'm not trying to. Maybe you can find this out later. Is this being?
But no, Erdogan, the Turkish leader, was quoted this morning as condemning what Israel is doing.
I'll share a link here in a sec.
I read before I came on the air here too. The Jordanian president. I'm not sure what his former. Does anybody know what the Hussein? He's been friendly with Israel for a long time. They've maintained a peace.
Mm-hmm.
Between the king of Jordan.
Yes.
I've forgotten it. I sat beside him at a prayer breakfast about 5 years ago.
Abdullah II of Jordan.
I sat beside him and his wife.
His predecessor was Hussein, Crown Prince Hussein.
Okay.
And then there is a heir apparent who's also Crown Prince Hussein.
Anyway, he's making comments, not comments we're going to war with Israel, but condemning, saying that the Palestinian people, that is a word to describe some of the Arab Muslims that live there in Gaza, must have their, basically advocating for a two-state solution. They must have their land and so forth and so on.
Even friends, even nations that have been friendly towards Israel, they have to be careful that they don't ignite the Arab street in their own countries. So you may get some of that speaking out of both sides of your mouth from some of these leaders because they don't want trouble in their nation either. So maybe they're splitting the difference.
You're listening to Share-a-thon on American Family Radio. We're taking 3 days here in the fall, and we did 3 days in the spring. So 6 days out of the year that we, quote, interrupt our regularly scheduled programming to bring you our financial needs to your attention, because we are a listener-supported Christian radio network, so we got to pass the offering plate like you do in church. So we ask that you give whatever you can to help us speak the truth and proclaim the Word of God, the Bible, and tell people about the Lord, which is the most important thing because of the eternal salvation. We're all going to pass away one day, and the Bible says the way to heaven, that is the way to God, the way to everlasting life is through Jesus Christ, and that is the only way to heaven. We talk about that every day here on American Family Radio, and we will continue to do so. We do talk about the news and what's happening in our country and in our world here on AFR, because the Bible says we're to be salt and light. We need to be knowledgeable. We need to be participants, especially in our country where we can be. And there are few places in the world where a person can be active in bringing about change and making a difference, as you can here in the U.S. of A. So that's what we do each and every day here on American Family Radio. I want to delve into this for just a moment, because people may not know who don't keep up, don't read history, maybe don't know too much about. They know about Israel. They've heard of the Holy Land, and now they're hearing about Hamas, but they don't know what the backdrop is here. Because you just wonder, well, why are some people saying the Palestinian people, the Arab people deserve their own land, okay? And that's the reason they're fighting. That's the reason they're attacking Israel, because Israel's taking their land. Now, this gets very complicated in many ways. It's simple, yet it's complicated. But I think it does help to understand at least how the other side on this thinks. I'm not saying it's a legitimate position to hold. Don't misunderstand me. But Ed, you had, and Jenna can chime in, but this, because I think this is important, because when Israel became a country in 1948, that piece of land was basically called under British mandate. It wasn't a country. Am I right?
Right.
There was no
British mandate.
So there was no Palestine nation that was eradicated or taken over. You had the land of what we know as Israel, where Arabs lived and Jews lived too already, right? But there was no country called Palestine.
Right.
But after World War II, that became in 1948. That became after the Holocaust, the United Nations of all people now, who is very anti-Israel in many ways, they created with Britain this land, the historic homeland of the Jews, to be Israel, a sovereign nation, right?
Yeah, and so let me, with y'all's permission, let's
hold our break, because I think this is important, this history lesson, as we lead up to what we're facing, what we see going on today. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me actually take a step back to give some context to the religious background of what we're seeing happening in the Middle East. All right. So you had the spread of Islam in the 700s AD.
That's when it was birthed, right?
Yes.
Because that's when Muhammad lived?
That's right.
Okay.
So it began to spread and conquer everywhere it went. So it conquered North Africa, moved into Spain. It conquered the Middle East, eventually knocked out the Byzantine Empire with the conquest of Constantinople in 1453. It spread into Asia. So in the mindset of Muslim scholars, they believed Islam was ascendant, Allah was giving them victory, and they were going to conquer the world. That was their mindset. So they had all this territory that they controlled. They called it the House of Islam. Well, in the 1800s, 1700s, 1800s, on into the 1900s, the Western world developed the economic and military power to roll back Muslim control, especially in the Middle East. France conquered parts of North Africa. In other places in Africa, the British powers divided up lands that had been run by Muslims. The Middle East, after World War I, the Ottoman Empire, which controlled the Middle East and Turkey, was defeated in World War I. The Allied powers carved it up. And so that created a crisis, a theological crisis in Islam. So in the 1920s, World War I has ended. The great Ottoman Empire has been carved up by Western powers. What has happened? The Muslim Brotherhood and other religious leaders in Islam said the reason that we have lost is that Allah is displeased with us for becoming Western. So this is where fundamentalist Islam began to develop its strength. And the Muslim Brotherhood, for example, in Egypt and other places began to say, we cannot have Western laws. We've got to have Sharia law. That's why Muslim nations don't want democracy. Nobody has the right to vote on laws. It must come from Allah. So you had this fundamentalist movement within Islam, and what these scholars said is that any territory that once belonged to Islam has to be brought back under the control of Islam. So when the United Nations takes a part of, which you referenced, Palestine, that was the old Roman Empire word for it, fundamentalist Muslims went crazy. They said, you cannot take land that belonged to Islam and give it to unbelievers, to infidels. And this, in the 1930s, this erupted in civil war between the Jews who lived in that part of the world and the Muslims. And so in 1948, you give this territory to the Jews, it belongs to Islam. That's why groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, the Taliban, that's why they say we will push Israel into the sea, because they are on territory owned by Islam, and it's owned by Islam forever. So that's why it's so difficult to find a political solution, because this is at its heart a religious and, as you mentioned, spiritual war that is going on between the spirit behind Islam and the God of the Bible.
And what you've just described was also what motivated Osama bin Laden.
Yes. These are true believers that once land has belonged to Islam. That's why real jihadists, okay, the West tries to say those are not real Muslims. They are twisting the faith. No, those are people who actually believe the faith of Islam and who demand that Israel be pushed out forever.
So Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, another one of those groups,
right?
Like you just mentioned, Islamic fundamentalist groups. That's why they refer to, and this is the thinking of the mullahs that control Iran. This is why Iran is so really dangerous today. There's nothing secular about it. They're motivated by the ideology you described. So Osama bin Laden, and they view, even though he was Sunni and they're Shia, they being Iran, still their common enemy is the great Satan,
right,
which is the United States, in a broader sense, the West, and the little Satan, which is Israel. So there's no, I hate to be pessimistic, there will be peace here and there. There will be times of peace and cooperation. But that Muslim Brotherhood fundamentalist ideology is not going away, hasn't gone away, is not going away anytime soon. Therefore, this is what motivates the Hamas organization to constantly be a threat and attack Israel, and they won't be happy until they conquer the land back and push the Jews into the sea.
And let's not forget that this also goes all the way back to the book of Genesis and Abraham with Isaac and Ishmael, and that conflict where Abraham did not believe God's promise that his seed would come from his wife Sarah, and so he took the handmaiden Hagar and had son Ishmael, who was really the first. Was the ancestor and father of the Arabs, and then Isaac. And so when we look back at Scripture, this is why it's so incredibly important for everyone listening who, whether you're a Christian or not, biblical history is important to understanding current events. And the Bible is historically accurate, and we understand some of these religious conflicts and world conflicts through what the Bible tells us about history. And so when we look at the covenant that God gave with the nation of Israel and with the Jews, and then how that plays into this warfare today, it's so important not just to compartmentalize our faith into church on Sundays, but understand from a Christian worldview perspective the history and the accuracy of what happened in the Bible. I mean, we're talking 4,000 years ago or 2000 BC that has now led into this conflict as well. I mean, starting back in Genesis chapter 16.
And Jen, if you could take us through 4,000 years of history.
In Hebrew.
We've got about 25 minutes here in Hebrew, and break that down for us. We'd appreciate that. Is that I'm kidding, but that is critically important. What you're talking about, Fred. Go ahead.
Yes.
Ed mentioned the word conquer. All right. The difference when we send missionaries into countries, we're not there to conquer. We're there to share the gospel with people. Islam likes to present itself to the West as a peaceful religion. No. The authentic Islam believes in conquering. In other words, we are here. If you do not accept us, we will kill you.
Islam, the word means submission.
Yes. So sometimes in the West, you will hear from some Muslim that we are a peaceful religion. There may be peaceful Muslims, but the religion itself is built on conquering.
Yes, and that's why you see the most committed of these Muslims, they wear a beard. Mm-hmm. The men I'm talking about, obviously, and so the more devout they are, the more they believe the way Ed described. They're called fundamentalists. A lot of Muslims are like Christians, are Jews. They're nominal. They don't. Right. They may go to the mosque. They don't bow down 5 times a day and turn toward Mecca like the most devout of them before. And thank God, a lot of them are nominal. Right. Or we'd have much more problems in this world. But here's all right. Here's about what's. Let's just hold the break. Here's what's going to happen. It's happening now, and it's going to happen in the next few days, and it's going to happen in the next few months. Okay, so but before I talk about that, don't let me forget, because I'm 60 now, Ed. Okay, I'm going to talk about what's going to happen as a result of Israeli forces going into Gaza. Okay, that's what I want to get to. All right. But before I get to that, what's troubling is now we see these pro-Hamas demonstrations going on around the world and in the West, and they've come out and they are totally and completely against Israel, and they're against the U.S. aiding Israel. We're seeing this go on college campuses now. We're seeing rallies with people we've let into our country. In Minneapolis, with the Somalis, they're Muslims. With the Muslim population in
Hamtramck,
in the Detroit area,
mm-hmm. and all these student groups.
Across
universities.
They bring an anti-Israeli mentality to an anti-Christian mentality to more to America than we've ever had before. I'll tell you another danger here. Well, don't we have happy news? we do. We're just trying to.
This is why we have puppies today.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. The offset.
That's right. So we call it like you see it. There are many people that have warned Europe. You let these Muslims in by the millions, you're going to have major trouble down the road. And that's starting to take place now. It's already 10% of the population of France now are Muslims who come in from the Middle East, from North Africa. In Italy, they're coming ashore. The problem we have on our southern border, they have the same thing in Italy.
The most popular baby name in London is Muhammad.
Muhammad, yeah. So they've come. Now, I would say, who knows all the reasons why they've come? Most of them have probably, I'm talking about the Muslims that have immigrated to Europe over the last 20, 30, 40 years. Most of them have probably come to escape poverty. They want opportunity. They see that in the West, and you have to ask yourself, why does Europe and North America have such prosperity in many respects, as opposed to, I guess that's a subject for another day. But I'm just saying that all these Muslims that have come into Europe, they're changing the face of Europe, and that's why you see a lot of these European countries, they're hesitant right now to condemn Hamas and call it out for what it is. Why? Because of the reason you mentioned, Ed. They're worried that the Muslims that are now in their country will rise up and start protesting and or committing acts of violence in the name of Islam in Europe. It's already happening in France. I don't know what the situation is in Italy in terms of violence.
Well, that's why the new leader in Italy is being condemned by the mainstream media. Remember, she spoke to CPAC here in America. She's got traditional
But she
values.
was elected by the Italian people.
And why was she elected?
Because they're tired of being invaded.
Yes.
And this also is a very clear contrast, and why the East hates the West is because the West is for liberty and religious freedom.
Yes.
And religious freedom here in America, with all of these organizations and groups that you're talking about, Tim, don't understand that compulsory religion and these kinds of blasphemy laws and the way that Islam operates with Sharia law and all of this is completely antithetical to Christianity and to America's founding. And why the West was so successful is not just because of the industry or because of the Enlightenment or because of any of those things that have come out of the West and the art and all of that. It was because of the foundation of the Christian worldview that understood religious freedom, and that more freedom and more liberty is self-restraint and understanding that we choose to honor God, and we choose to understand that liberty necessarily is built on a Christian foundation. And so this type of religious conflict is at the heart of why Christianity and Islam are so incompatible.
And the irony and the blindness that is occurring in the West, the irony is that while Europe has spent the last 50 to 75 years basically proclaiming that they wanted to get to divest themselves of their Christian heritage, we don't want to have religion. I understand a lot of religious wars in Europe's history. We don't want religion to control our lives. They are letting the people in who, if they ever take power, will cause them to absolutely submit to a religion. And the blindness is the very people who are the college kids and the professors and instructors on college campuses like Harvard, who are the most antagonistic towards Israel and the most welcoming of Islam, will be the first people to be forced to confess Islam if they want to live, should that religion take over our country. We're a long way from that, but that's the reality that they would be facing. Women would be told, you're not going to be professors anymore. You're going to go home.
Can't even drive.
Can't even drive. That's what
gays
happening.
and lesbians would be thrown off buildings.
That's right.
And a lot of people, will then say, well, for all of us as Christians, aren't you then trying to force your beliefs on us by saying that we're a Christian nation? But there's a difference. We're not a theonomy, or much less a theocracy. We're saying that every legal system, every government system has to be founded on a moral premise. Whose morality are we talking about? And the Christian worldview is the only view that gives everyone not only liberty and freedom
of conscience,
and freedom of consciousness, and to say that the government cannot control what you say, think, how you exercise your beliefs, but also that this is the only opportunity that you have, that there is not any type of people based on any intrinsic characteristic that is devalued. When you get into racism, sexism, all of these isms, this is about a mentality or a worldview that does not believe that every human being is made in the image of God and has inherent dignity and worth. The Christian biblical worldview is the only one that will treat with respect every single person.
That's why these secular liberals who are trying to tear down Christianity, they don't know what they're asking. They don't know where that's going to lead to. They think they lead to some kind of secular utopia. No, it won't. Well, let's play a listener testimony, then come back and reset. Chris has a clip he wants to play.
And I'll give the phone number when we come back.
And then I've got to get back to.
And I remember which.
You remember?
I
you
do.
Write it down?
Yeah.
Okay. You remember why I came in this room?
Right.
I did write it down.
Okay. We'll be back momentarily.
Hi, this is Jamie from Louisiana. I'm a single mom, raising a teen. And when those teen years hit, I was just feeling so defeated and discouraged. that thankfully you have programs like Parenting Today's Teen that offered practical resources to put into my hands, that I wasn't being such a failure. Some of this was regular developmental actions that teens start coming into, and it just helped me understand things much better. You guys are always a source of light and hope, and I pray that you'll continue to be on those airways, strengthening families. God bless you, AFR.
Well, it is our fall share-a-thon. The theme is Heaven Changes Everything. The number to call if you want to give to AFR during our fall share-a-thon is 877-616-2396. 877-616-2396 is a number to call to give to Share-a-thon. You can go and give safely and securely online at afr.net. Jenna, just really quickly before we get to Tim and Chris, okay, we've just been spending, I want you to tell our audience why AFR is important. Okay, yes, that sounds self-serving, but I want you to share why it is so critically important in 2023 that a source of news and information from a Christian perspective is vitally important to the health and future of our country.
Well, the conversation, Ed, that we just had right before that listener testimony is something that you will not hear on any other network. To go back to the biblical history, to talk about why the West, not just capitalism, not just education, universities, some of these things are important, but the Christian worldview foundation. And so looking at what's going on in terms of the news of the day within the biblical framework, which is not only important on the history, but also the worldview. This matters to understanding the times, understanding where we've been, where we're going, even answering the questions, is this leading up into the end times, eschatology, the end of all things? Looking at this in the context of history, you're not going to hear that anywhere else other than a Christian station. And for those of us who want to understand the times, to understand where we are going and have answers to life's most important questions, this is why I love being a host here on AFR, because we can bring in the most essential element, which is the biblical worldview that is premised on the person of truth, which is Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. You only get the topics, maybe the politics, from a bias on mainstream media, one side or the other, conservative or leftist. But here we want to come from the only perspective that matters, which is the perspective of truth.
Amen. Folks, until 11 a.m. Central Time, so just under 15 minutes, we have a $50,000 Founders Day Challenge.
We haven't even mentioned that.
I just now looked and saw it. What that means is whatever you give, it will be matched by the generous donation or donations of some of our supporters. $50,000. That's a pool out of which your donation will be matched. Your gift. So that means if you give $50, it's $100. If you give $100, it becomes $200. Here's how you call and take advantage of that Founders Day $50,000 challenge. Here's the number: 877-616-2396. 877-616-2396. That challenge also applies if you give online at afr.net.
All right, I know you want to play a clip, but
you go ahead and do.
Yeah, but I got to explain. I got to help explain this situation, because this is what's happening now, and this is about to become the major global story that is going to be out there for the rest of the year. War. First of all, war is hell. There's no other way to describe it. And though I haven't ever been in war, there are many listeners right now who had fathers and grandfathers in World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, what happened in Iraq with that. Do you call
Afghanistan?
That? Afghanistan. Yeah. We have many veterans listening right now who's had to be in active combat. War is hell. It's romanticized in movies. Okay, but it's unbelievably um, hard on humans, and for all kinds of different reasons. Okay, but here's here's the public relations dilemma that Israel has always been in, and I think they're about to say we don't care anymore, at least for now, because their survival depends on it. It's an us or them moment, right, for Israel. In the Gaza Strip, you have approximately 2 million people that live there. Their women, their children, their families, their husbands, their brothers, their people. These aren't 2 million Hamas fighters who live there. However, in the midst of them are Hamas. Hamas reigns as they're like the mob. Okay, yes, the citizens support them in a way, because that's the only government I put that in quotations, that they have, but it's like the mob. They control the street. Okay, you don't come out in Gaza and say, you know what, I think we need to talk to Israel about it. No, then you're dead,
right,
and your family. Okay, so that's a situation that exists. It's very sad and tragic. The Gaza Strip is more or less a hellhole. All right, it's a hopeless place, and it's that way because Israel has had to relegate these people to this certain small landmass to keep them from committing acts of war, and so they could watch them, basically put them in a prison, so to speak. It's regrettable that has to be done, but for Israel to survive, they have to do that. Well, now, since Hamas has decided to launch all these rockets and kill and murder all these civilians, Israeli civilians, with the threat of doing more damage, Israel has to go to war with, I know I'm being elementary here, but I'm wanting people to appreciate what's about to happen. Okay, so Israel's now going to have, they're launching, Israel is bombing Gaza Strip into smithereens as we speak with rockets from Israel. The Gaza Strip, they don't have Iron Dome blocks for the Israeli rockets. They're raining down, and they're hitting buildings, and people are dying right now, and they're women and children who are dying. They're not Hamas fighters, but right, they were born into this situation. It's a very tragic situation and sad. But Israel, back to my premise, my start, war is hell. It's an us or them moment. In us or them moments in war, your first consideration can't necessarily be, are innocent people going to be killed in our attack?
It's self-preservation.
It's self-preservation. Now that goes against our heart. That goes against Western values. We don't like carpet bombing. We want to kill the enemy. You see what I'm saying? And so, but if you didn't have carpet bombing in World War II, we never would have won it, even though a lot of innocent people died as a result of that. So I'm not saying that's basically what Israel's doing now. They're basically carpet bombing because they want to completely and totally eradicate Hamas of being a threat to their citizens anymore. Well, what's going to happen, and it's already happening now, the world at large is about to condemn Israel. All right? They're about to condemn Israel for the very thing I just said, because they're raining down bombs on civilians that live inside Gaza, and they have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go. They I think yesterday, they have no water. They have no electricity. Israel has shut those off. And I don't know why this happened, but evidently the only exit out at the time yesterday for refugees from Gaza into Egypt, not that Egypt wants the refugees, they bombed that road, the Israelis did. I don't know if that was a mistake or if that was intentional. I don't know. So Israel, even President Biden, the U.S. is the strongest ally of Israel. And even politicians and Biden, they're going to be nitpicking Israel on, well, you shouldn't have done that bomb. You shouldn't have done that. But look at this video. This is horrible. Look at these women. Look at these people. They're dying because Israel's raining rockets down indiscriminately into the Gaza Strip. That's going to happen. The pressure is going to mount on Benjamin Netanyahu and Biden, if he even knows what's going on day to day, which is another story in and of itself. I'm just saying the pressure is going to build. Also, within the Democrat Party, in the U.S., there's a significant element. We're seeing it now inside the Democrat Party. They're going to put pressure on Biden. Hey, you need to quit standing with Israel. Look, they're killing a bunch of innocent people over there. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
This is biblical in the sense that, listen, we got all kind of humanitarian tragedies and injustices going on in Africa right now. Christians being, what country is that? Nigeria, where Christians are being just murdered because they're Christians by Muslims.
Boko Haram.
We got human rights violations every day, all day in China, right?
North Korea
and other places around the world. The world doesn't focus on that every day and say, you must do this, you must do that, or condemn that. But when it comes to Israel, you better believe it. They're going to all be focused. The European Union will do this. The United Nations will do this. There'll be calls for, I don't know where Canada's going to come down on this, Fred. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But that Canada is going left on many things.
NATO.
Who knows? If you have Turkey, is Turkey going to be kicked out of NATO if they go to war with? Huh?
Yeah.
I mean, and who knows where this is going to be in the next week or a month? But Israel has to. I think Israel's decided we can't listen to all this noise from of condemnation around the world. We got to do what we got to do to protect our country, or we're not going to exist anymore.
Right.
So that's a long-winded way to explain what's about to happen, but the pressure being brought to bear on Benjamin Netanyahu, and they got their own half the country of Israel up to this point hadn't wanted Netanyahu to be the prime minister. They got their own issues internally that have been very divisive. Right. They're like us. They got Democrats and Republicans warring at each other all the time over there. So it's a crisis moment with a capital C. And then we don't know who's controlling the U.S. military. If Biden has dementia, as it looks like he I don't know if he has a medical diagnosis of that. I doubt he does, because that would call for somebody to be removed, right? I mean, you'd be undeniable. Probably doesn't want to take a test like that. But he's not cognizant of what's going on. Half the time he can barely read. Yesterday he had a press conference about this. He wouldn't take any questions. Can you imagine a U.S. president, any time in history where we've had a media and you have an international crisis like this involving our top ally in the Middle East, and the guy just shuffles away after making comments, not even fielding any questions?
And the media just allows it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Well, what you all don't understand, let me just explain, that ice cream's not going to eat itself. All right? So he's got to go and get that task done.
Because that's clearly in Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, that it's a prime obligation of the U.S. president.
We didn't get to play it, Chris.
Oh, that's fine. He shuffles away knowing the media is then going to condemn Israel, and that becomes a non-issue, him walking away.
And we don't have a Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
Right now, that I think we will have today. Is that right?
The conference is still talking, and so we don't know. Apparently, it's supposed to be either Jim Jordan or Steve Scalise, but it will be very interesting to see if the more moderate Republicans will band together and push Kevin McCarthy, or even go along with the Democrats. We could end up with Hakeem Jeffries. So, I mean, anything is possible.
That'd be bizarre.
That would be terrible. That would be the end of Matt Gaetz, I think, in terms of the Republican conference. But we're gonna follow that pretty closely.
Yeah. All right. So, in all this, folks, you need to pray.
Yes.
You need to pray earnestly today. We'll be back in 5 minutes with more of today's issues.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio. Remember, for a one-time gift of $150 or more, we'll send you Hilarious Highlights Collections 9 and 10 from Learning University. And for a monthly donation of $30 or more, we'll also send you the new book, 100 Bible Questions and Answers for Families by Bert Harper and Alex McFarland. And thank you again for supporting AFR during Share-a-thon. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Steve Pugh. The co-founder of Hamas has reportedly been killed. Trey Yingst at the Israel-Gaza border.
We're getting some reports from inside Gaza, according to Palestinian media, that Abdel Fattah Dukhan, the co-founder of Hamas, was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Again, this is attributable to Palestinian media inside Gaza. This is not something they would normally report if they were unsure of. This is not a current active leader in the organization, but he is one of the founding members, a chartering member of Hamas.
Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner is a spokesman for the Israeli Defense Force. He's not giving any details, but says boots could be on the ground soon to root out and kill all these terrorists.
So we've not announced a ground incursion, and I would be very cautious in deducing that that's the situation. We're currently preparing ourselves for any eventuality. And of course, we are very aware of the threats that we face on the ground and the capabilities of Hamas and other terrorist organizations in the Gaza Strip. The reality on the ground is one which is extremely volatile. We need to be prepared for all of the scenarios, and especially the most extreme one. The reality is one that, this is, I think, the most important. You've seen the images that came out from Saturday's brutal attack. This can never be permitted to happen again.
Meanwhile, many people are being held hostage by Hamas. Liel Silfer recognized a family member on television who was executed by Hamas. She says the world needs to wake up and realize these terrorists don't want a two-state solution. They want a final solution.
This is not the end of the death toll. There will be more to come. It's unimaginable, and I pray that Carmel and Yarden will come home safely. But you're exactly right. Hamas will stop at nothing. They are using these people as pawns. They don't want a two-state solution. They want the final solution. And they don't care how many Jews, how many Americans, how many of their own people have to die in order for them to wage their jihad.
A national defense analyst and Pentagon advisor says President Joe Biden was not very convincing during a speech to the American people related to the terrorist attack in Israel. Chad Groening has more.
Joe Biden attempted to take a tough approach when he addressed the crisis in Israel, confirming that at least 14 Americans have been murdered by the Hamas terrorists and others are being held hostage. The president also confirmed that the U.S. has already begun delivering critically needed munitions and military equipment to Israel, and the Pentagon was reviewing its inventories to see what else can be sent quickly to boost its ally in the war against Hamas.
The loss of innocent life is heartbreaking. Like every nation in the world, Israel has the right to respond, indeed has a duty to respond to these vicious attacks.
Bob McGinnis is Senior Fellow for National Security at the Family Research Council and author of Divided We Stand.
He's never been very convincing from my perspective. The words, of course, are always what the speechwriter wants him to say and what the State Department wants to send as a message. So I understand the message. It's the follow-through, which is always the problem.
And McGinnis says the president said nothing about the threat to our own homeland.
As a result of this instability that he's triggered in Europe and in Asia and now in the Middle East because of his own malfeasance. The open border with thousands of people that have poured across that border that are on terrorist watch lists or criminals, we have really created a volatile situation in the United States, which we hate to see what's going on in Israel, but I don't think it's out of the question it could happen here. And he didn't even address that. And yet that's in the back of the minds of a lot of Americans.
I'm Chad Groening.
And finally, House Republicans are gathering behind closed doors this morning to select their candidate for Speaker after ex-Speaker Kevin McCarthy's historic ouster last week. More news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
My wife and I listen to your broadcast every day, either live or through podcast. AFR has played a major role in helping my wife and me deal with adversity in my business, the needs of our aging parents, spreading the gospel of Christ to our children and grandchildren. Also, by sharing this information, my marriage with my wife has grown stronger. As the Lord continues to bless us, we will gladly support this fine organization.
It's day 2 of Share-a-thon, and it's Founders Day on American Family Radio. We're honoring Brother Don Wildman and his wife Linda for their faithful obedience to the Lord and their example to us.
God doesn't require us to be successful. God requires us to be faithful.
Call now at 877-616-2396 to give, or at pledge online at afr.net. It's Founders Day on American Family Radio.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Share-a-thon on American Family Radio. It's 11:05, or I guess technically 11:05 Central Time here in the good old US of A in the morning, AM, and we thank you for listening to American Family Radio. Day 2 of Share-a-thon, hour 2 of this show, and we appreciate you listening. I'm Tim Wildman with Ed Battagliano and Fred Jackson, and Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us right now. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. Good morning. I am wearing Paisley.
I don't.
Yeah,
is his
we're
microphone
not hearing.
working?
We're not hearing him. I will give the phone number while we're waiting for Steve to get hooked up there. It is 877-616-2396. What does that number mean? That's how you can call in and give to Share-a-thon. We have people listening, who are waiting in Share-a-thon Central right
What are they
here in
waiting
this building.
for?
They're waiting for callers, Tim. They're waiting for callers, Tim. They are waiting for people to call in.
Is that Elmer Fudd or Bill Clinton?
I think I kind of got them both.
Which one you did?
I got them both. Hillary
Elmer
said,
Clinton.
Hillary said I could be president.
I don't need or deserve that right now. Okay.
877-616-2396, and I will do all kinds of Looney Tune impressions for you. 877-616.
He'll stop if you give a lot of money.
2396, or you can give safely and securely at afr.net.
We were talking about. By the way, let me just thank everybody who's already called yesterday and today, or you sent your pledge in via the mail prior to Share-a-thon. We just want to say thank you. We've had 7,709 people and or families that have called in to say, hey, we love American Family Radio. We're standing with you. We want to financially support you because we want AFR to stay on the air. That's really what it amounts to, is we can't be on the air if people don't financially support us, because we're listener-supported Christian radio. And the vast, vast, vast majority of our support are the small donations monthly. And we like it that way. Quite frankly, that's more dependable than one or two big donors who...
We take that.
We'll take that.
We'll take it.
We'll
but in
take
terms
that.
of
just, you know
counting on it, yeah. And by the way, we tell people during Share-a-thon, the reason, folks, that you are listening to American Family Radio on this day, October 11th, 2023, is because somebody gave during our April Share-a-thon. That's how this works. We're on the air because of people who were faithful and gave 6 months ago. So join that army.
Can I just mention a harsh reality as a comparison?
Yeah.
We've all heard about or seen about or been in churches where people go, well, if so-and-so leaves, the church is toast.
Yeah.
Financially. Huh?
Right.
Or if those two people pull out, if those two people are good people, and then everything works out. But if those kind of people are my way or the highway folks,
right,
you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So we've always been supported by, basically the backbone of this ministry is what I would call monthly donations to AFR and to AFA. So we thank everybody, whether you're rich or poor or in between, and you make a gift to AFA And AFR, we thank you very much. Fred, did you have anything you wanted to comment on what we were talking about last hour? Especially about the dilemma that Israel finds itself in on a public relations stage?
On the public relations stage, we've seen it already in demonstrations on this side of the water. In particular, I wanted to play you right now, and Steve has this. Fox reporter Hillary Vaughn, who happens to be Peter Ducey's wife, by the way, stayed late on Capitol Hill last night to chase down Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. She's a Democrat from Michigan. She is a Muslim. She is the one with the Palestinian flag outside her office there in Washington, D.C. I want you to listen. This is a Fox News reporter asking questions about what has been discovered, what these Hamas terrorists did to Israeli citizens, men, women, and little babies. She just wants a reaction from this congresswoman to the atrocities being carried out by Hamas terrorists there in Israel. Listen to the chase down. Listen to what Rashida Tlaib did not say.
Cut one.
Terrorists have cut off babies' heads and burned children alive. Do you support Israel's rights to defend themselves against this brutality?
We're just going to go through there.
You can't comment about Hamas terrorists chopping off babies' heads. Do you condone what Hamas has done, chopping off babies' heads, burning children alive, raping women in the street? You have no comment about children's heads being chopped off? Congressman, why do you have the Palestinian flag outside your office if you do not condone what Hamas terrorists have done to Israel? Do Israeli lives not matter to you?
Wow.
She confronted her. We know babies' heads being decapitated. Confronted her about Israeli women being raped by these Hamas terrorists. That is a member of the United States Congress, Democrat, refused to condemn Hamas terrorists.
She very easily could have said, listen, because she's Palestinian.
Yes.
I support the Palestinian cause. I think that the Palestinians and the Israelis ought to get together, blah, 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 blah. But I condemn what Hamas has done.
Yeah.
That would have been, from her perspective.
Yeah, but she didn't.
But she wouldn't.
No.
So.
What does that tell you?
That's listen, that's horrifying. That would be like Germans after World War II, refusing to comment on the news and the information that's come out about what was being done to the Jews in concentration camps. Do you have a comment? Are you at least going to condemn what was being done? And then being silent.
And what is her boss in the House, the minority House leader?
Hakeem Jeffries.
What's he going to do with her? Are you going to just put up with this? What is the Democratic Party? Why don't they come out and condemn her?
Yeah. Well, I think we all can fill in that blank pretty much. But let me give the phone number and everything here for Sherathon, then we'll get to some other news. Here's the phone number, folks. If you want to call in and make a gift and be as generous as you can, you're not going to hear the kind of discussion and talk we're having today from a biblical perspective, as well as a historically accurate perspective. You're just not going to hear that very many places at all, even in the U.S. In our media. Certainly not the biblical historical perspective. Let me give the phone number here if you want to make a pledge and be as generous as you possibly can. Again, our Sherathon, it's our fall Sherathon. We do this twice a year, so we don't beg people for money. We just make our financial needs known twice a year and ask you to call in and be as generous as you can. If you can pledge on a monthly basis, that would really, really be helpful and allow us to plan and to budget. Here's the phone number to call and make a gift. And this rings right in here to our offices, right down the hall here, our studios. From our studios, we have what we call Sherathon Central, where most of the people answering the phone, they're either our staff or they're people who listen like you who are volunteers. taking phone calls. The phone number to reach us is 877-616-2396. 877-616-2396. If she would have said that, what's her name, Rashid Tlaib?
Rashida Tlaib.
That we were hearing with no response to what the Fox reporter was talking about. If she could have said anything, she would have said this: well, Israel does it too. In other words, Israel kills Palestinian children too. So it's both sides do it. That's what she would say. I think. Don't you think so, Ed?
Yeah, and she could have said, and I condemn both sides doing it.
Yeah.
There are things she could have said that would not have sounded
like
as
endorsed,
as awful as her silence sounded
on
right
that.
now.
Yeah.
On that.
Well, and the thing is, because you're going to hear, Israel does it too.
And I'm not, obviously, I'm not embracing a moral equivalency here. I'm just saying what she would say. Go ahead.
But I want to point out perhaps a suggested response when you hear that. Israel does not target civilians.
Right.
Hamas terrorists targeted civilians.
And Hamas terrorists hide out when they're firing rockets with using human shields.
Yes.
And for everything that I've heard, Israel, before they strike a building, tells everybody to get out.
And they still are.
Yeah.
They're sending messages. The Israeli military is still sending messages in, civilians get out, because we are going to target this building because it's a Hamas.
I don't know where they're going to go, though. Is Egypt going to take all that?
Well, no, they can't just go to another part of the city.
In this case, what we're talking about, they mean get out of this building. We're going to target this particular building. So if you don't want to be in it.
When you cut off electricity and you cut off water, again, this is war.
Right.
So you do those kinds of things because the ultimate objective is to bring your enemy to heel.
Right.
And you can't, again, if you have to consider collateral damage in that situation, and by the collateral damage, that's a sanitized way of saying innocent people dying.
Right.
Then you're not going to win. Right.
Right.
That's been the criticism of some of our efforts, the U.S. We've been too careful, and therefore we haven't eliminated the enemy in this war or that war, this conflict or that conflict.
Well, the other thing that's about to start probably in the next 48 hours is what's known as
ground invasion,
guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, because
street to street.
Yeah. Like I mentioned this way, imagine whatever big city is close to you. Imagine a block by block warfare with the Hamas fighters coming out of buildings.
Yeah, not wearing uniforms, so you don't know they're the enemy until they
Well,
pull up their rifle.
I saw one yesterday. There was a video, and it was legit. It was a legit video, and it was a Palestinian man sending a child out in front of him to go throw rocks at the Israeli soldiers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, what are the Israeli soldiers? They're supposed to blow this. They're supposed to mow down this little 5-year-old. Well, imagine that on a video going worldwide, huh?
Right.
But yet the alternative is to risk being a grenade being thrown at you. As I mentioned again, I've said it 3 times: war is hell, and so it's a very precarious. That's an understatement. Situation.
We haven't mentioned this yet, I think, but we also now know Hezbollah in Lebanon is throwing missiles now into Israel. There's been a fresh attack this morning. Also from Syria last night, going down into the Golan Heights. And so now there's at least 3 fronts that Israel is having to deal with. Also, there have been skirmishes inside the West Bank. So actually about 4 fronts.
That's what you don't want to happen right there. Listen, I've been to Israel. I've lost count. 27 times, something like that. Since my dad started leading tours to the Holy Land in the 60s.
Yeah.
And then I started going with him in late 80s, early 90s, and he quit going, handed the tours over to me and my wife, Alice, and we've been going ever since annually, except for 1 or 2 years. And you don't want you have the Gaza Strip, and that's relegated to the southern tips of Israel. You can deal with that geographically. But if you start having uprisings in Bethlehem or Nazareth or Jericho or Hebron, some of these other areas where the Arabs basically where they live, that's going to make things exponentially worse. I hope that doesn't happen. But and let me just say this too, having worked with many Arabs in Israel over the years, the vast majority of those people are friendly, peaceful, family-oriented people. Now, most of them are nominal Muslims.
Right.
But they work with Americans and Westerners all the time. They depend on the Arabs and the Jews depend on
tourism.
Yeah. And so I don't want us to, quote, demonize all the Arabs who live in Israel. That would be terrible because the vast majority of them are peace-loving people. In fact, I mentioned this survey. Maybe I'll Google this, but because Google's always right. And there was a survey done 4 or 5 years ago of Arabs who live in Israel. And when asked, would you rather live in Israel or would you rather live in an Arab country, a Muslim country? And the majority of them answered, we would rather live in Israel, even though it's a Jewish state.
Yes.
Because
freedom.
Because they enjoy the Western form of life. Yeah. Where freedom and liberty exist. You know what I'm saying?
And as it's a more industrial.
As opposed to the Arab-dominated, Muslim-dominated countries, there is no freedom like they have in Israel. It's a king. Look at even Jordan, as peaceful as they've been. They got a king forever. Saudi Arabia, they're ruled by the royal family. You don't have any rights. I was reading the other day, some lady got into an argument. Some American lady got into an argument with a airport official in Saudi Arabia about something, and she was put in prison. Well, there's no, you don't have Miranda rights being read to you.
Freedom of speech.
No, go to these Muslim countries. It's Sharia law or a kingdom. Very rarely will you find any kind of a democracy or a representative form of government, or where you have free and fair elections. So anyway, it's Israel. Yes, they have trouble and they have problems like anywhere else, but the people in Israel, both the Arabs and the Jews, live. They basically live more or less a Western type lifestyle. Right. There's a lot of economic prosperity in that country that don't exist in most Muslim-dominated lands. If you're listening to Share-a-thon, what's our theme, Ed?
Our theme is Heaven Changes Everything.
What do we mean by that?
Well, the theme comes from Philippians chapter 3, verse 20. I'm going to read it to you in the ESV. It says, but our citizenship is in heaven, and from it we await a Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. And that reality and the fact that Jesus came the first time in order to redeem humanity by dying upon the cross, being raised from the dead, and he ascended to the right hand of the Father, we say heaven changes everything. Knowing God through Jesus Christ, understanding that we're on our way to heaven, gives us the boldness. It's supposed to give us the boldness to share about that good news to anyone we meet. We are in the midst of our fall share-a-thon, as we just mentioned. Here is the number to call if you would like to give. It is 877-616-2396, 877-616-2396. We have people standing by who will take your call and handle your request professionally. I would like to share with you about our Fall Share-a-thon Premium. For a one-time gift of $150 or more, you will receive a CD of Hilarious Highlights, Volumes 9 and 10. That is the newest CD from Trivia Friday on American Family Radio. Or
Or
we give you options. If you become a Great Commission partner with a monthly gift of $30 or more,
you can give $1 million a month if you want to.
We're
not going to say no.
We won't. We're not proud.
No.
If you become a Great Commission partner with a monthly gift of $30 or more, you will receive not only the CD, Hilarious Highlights Volumes 9 and 10, but also the new book, 100 Bible Questions and Answers for Families. That is written by Dr. Alex McFarland and Bert Harper. Both are co-hosts of Exploring the Word, heard on American Family Radio weekdays at 3 p.m. Central Time. Again, the number to call is 877-616-2396. We ask you to be as generous as possible. If you don't like talking to people, there is a way for you to still give safely and securely if you go to afr.net, afr.net.
Steve.
All right. Let me talk about this. You guys talked about Turkey getting involved in.
Fred mentioned that. I had not heard that. Fred mentioned that. Would you know more about this?
I want to get a little more specific. This isn't the entirety of the involvement of Turkey, but yesterday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel put up on his Twitter site video of some of the action going on, military strikes being carried out on the Gaza Strip. A top official within Turkey's Ministry of National Education, his name is Nazif Yilmaz, tweeted back, "One day they will shoot you too. You will die."
And who is this who did that?
A top official in the Turkish government, specifically targeting Benjamin Netanyahu, or threatening, I guess, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Is that still up there?
I don't have any indication it's been taken down.
A lot of times people tweet things and they take it down in 10 minutes because they realize
their career is over.
Yeah, they act emotionally and don't think about the consequences of what they say. That is one downside of this social media instant commentary age in which we live.
This social media thing that all the young people are doing.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, if Turkey gets openly involved in, even if it's openly, if it's behind the scenes, Israel will out them for that. And Israel and Turkey have had a pretty good relationship the last few years, I believe. But again, Israel's surrounded by.
Israel is in a tough spot because they've been getting. Now we're hearing about like Hezbollah from Lebanon putting drones in. They had a map with just dozens and dozens of strikes, but it's different. The next shoe to drop, which we pray that it doesn't happen, is not the terrorist organizations within them, but the Lebanese army, the Syrian army with their tanks and everything deciding to engage. That has not happened yet. I don't know what the military situation is on the border, on the other side of the border. I know that Israel is preparing for that occasion. But
let me tell you another thing. Israel has nukes.
They do. And the rumor has always been that there is what's called the Samson option, that Israel has in a certain scenario in which it is apparent that the Israeli state will collapse because of an attack, especially one nation or many nations, that the Samson option would be that they would nuke every capital of the Muslim countries surrounding them. Now, I don't know. I've heard that and read it for ages, but whether it's true or not, I'm guessing that a lot of the leaders of these countries do believe it, and probably would act accordingly.
It's similar. It's similar, not exactly the same, but similar as to the situation that existed between the former Soviet Union and the United States in what was called the Cold War. They got nukes pointed at us. We got nukes pointed at them, and both of them knew it. And it was in the best interest of everybody to at least try to have, diplomatic relations and try to work together. Right.
On
some level, even though they had diametrically opposed worldviews. One was Marxist, and one was democracy or freedom. We're going to take a short time out right here, and on American Family Radio, it's Share-a-thon. It's 11:29 Central Time. We thank you for listening to AFR. It's Wednesday, October the 11th, and we're going to be back momentarily with more of Share-a-thon with Ed, Fred, Steve, and Tim.
In honor of Brother Don and Linda Wildman, it's Founders Day on AFR.
I started here in 1984, and I have several best memories of Brother Don. One of them would be how he was so personable. He would know all about your family. He would ask questions about your children, want to know how your children are doing, and he was just very personable. Another memory I have is in the afternoons, Mr. Wildman would come around and tell everyone to make sure your calculators are off, the lights are off, adjust the heat and air. And because of that frugalness, we're still here today and we owe no one. And that same frugalness is being carried out today with Tim, Walker, and all of our leadership.
Brother Don has been standing in the gap for families, and Linda has been standing behind him since the inception of this ministry more than 40 years ago. We praise the Lord for our founders' obedient service during Share-a-thon on AFR.
My name is Iris. I'm calling from Texas, and I love American Family Radio, and I recommend it to so many of my friends because you get news from a Christian perspective that you don't get any place else, as well as wonderful Bible teaching and information from programs like Focus on the Family and the Bible programs as well. I love Abraham Hamilton in the afternoon, Washington Watch, and today's issues. Great job. Continue, and may your tents be expanded for many, many years.
My name's Rob, and I'm from Louisiana, and I've been listening to American Family Radio for about 10 years now. 2 years ago, my wife and I had a daughter named Madison, and Madison happened to have Down syndrome, and we had her for 7 months. She had open heart surgery, and she didn't make it, and she passed away at 7 months old. And she was a blessing, and she was a joy to have. And I'm very grateful for the 7 months that we had with her. And she was perfect in our eyes. And I'm very thankful for the message and the ministries that support the pro-life movement and the pro-life message that American Family Radio promotes and supports. And my wife and I, it just causes us a lot of pain and anguish to think that other people out there that maybe might find out they're having a special needs child or a child with certain disabilities would choose abortion. And if Madison's story, can be told, and one person would decide not to do that and realize the tremendous blessing and joy that special needs children are, would be a blessing to us. And I just thank American Family Radio every day for their message and their faithfulness to God and trying to do what's right and promote the things that are good and holy in this day and age.
God continues to provide for this ministry in the faithfulness of His saints during Share-a-thon. Call now at 877-616-2396 to give, or at pledge online at afr.net. It's Founders Day on American Family Radio.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to today's issues. I kind of yelled there. Today's issues, the name of the program, Share-a-thon, is what we're having here at American Family Radio. And you might ask, what does that mean? Well, that means we're passing the offering plate, and we're asking everybody who listens and supports AFR to make a donation and be as generous as you can, because if we don't have money, we don't have a radio network. Am I supposed to talk like that, Ed?
Well, you're just putting the cookies down on the bottom shelf.
Right.
That's nothing wrong with
dumbing it down, folks.
Speaking
I'm just telling you.
bluntly.
Speaking bluntly here. All right. So anyway, listen, we understand some of you are not in a place where you can give, and that's fine. But if you can make a gift to American Family Radio, even a monthly pledge, we would greatly appreciate it and would help us stay on the air. And we'd like to expand our territory, as the Bible says. So the phone number to make a donation to Share-a-thon, I'm going to get it right here. I say it in my sleep. I don't know why I can say it while I'm awake. Remember why I'm awake. Here's a phone number. You can call right now, and it dials right in here to our home offices and studios in Tupelo, Mississippi. Yes, it's a real place. 877-616-2396. Toll free. I don't know why I say that. You don't have to say that anymore, right? Everything's toll free on phones
right
now. 877-616-2396. But we do depend on our listeners to support us. And God bless you for everybody who's called in a gift already. Where are we? Let's see well, I'm saying where are we in Share-a-thon, Fred, in terms of the numbers?
Yes, 7,885 pledges so far.
Woo! Can I get a hand clap?
Yes,
for that?
you can.
All right.
Absolutely. Those are people who have taken the time to call in. People like Catherine of Saudi Daisy, Tennessee, Judy.
That sounded like a royalty statement you made. Catherine of what?
Saudi Daisy, Tennessee. I've never heard of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine of Saudi Daisy, Tennessee.
Bless your heart.
Bless
Dean and Bonnie of Petal, Mississippi. Marilyn of Blaine, Kansas. And Melvin of Rogers, Arkansas are just some of the latest donators to our Share-a-thon right now, and we thank you, and we thank each one who has called in of the 7,889.
Amen.
In the last
Praise the Lord.
Hours. Yes.
Thank you. I was kind of worried, and I don't know where we'll end up tomorrow night, but our economy's not been doing great.
Right.
Inflation's been pretty bad on everybody.
Pounding folks.
So I just wondered, people are even going to be able to afford to make a gift.
Right.
Make a donation.
But wait a minute, Tim. The president says Bidenomics are working. Economy's doing great.
Well, the president reminds me, to be nice about it, Fred, of one Pinocchio.
The president also thinks he was a football star in college.
Yes.
And that he was raised by Puerto Ricans.
Is it only one Pinocchio because he can't quite be blamed for what he...
The president thinks he is Pinocchio.
That was a good one.
I'm a real boy.
It's going to make me choke my popcorn, Ed. Good night. Somebody's got to regain some composure here.
I tell you.
Ed,
that's your job, Tim. My job is to disrupt and create chaos.
We're depending on Tim for, quote, regaining the composure. And I don't know. That's risky business right there. All right. Trivia Friday will be Friday. I was about to say, we're doing Trivia Friday. It sounded like
that's
it.
because you did the Pinocchio imitation.
Yes, you did. And you did a good one, too. You didn't do Elmer Fudd / Bill Clinton.
That's right.
You went straight for Pinocchio, which you did a good job there. All right, give the phone number. At least we can do that.
Yes, we can do this. Folks, it is our fall Share-a-thon. The theme is Heaven Changes Everything. And the number to call if you want to give to our fall Share-a-thon is 877-616-2396.
I would ask people to call with composure, too.
Yes, try to be composed.
Please,
call.
That's
right.
Composure.
877-616-2396. or you can give online safely and securely at afr.net.
AFR.net, AFR.net. Steve, next story.
All right, let me just give you an update real quick. Not much we know, but the Republicans are meeting behind closed doors to see if they can unify around a speaker.
Since Kevin McCarthy
got voted out, there's right
the
now
Democrats.
Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise are the two leading candidates, but they want to meet behind closed doors so they can choose someone unified to put before the House tonight for a vote. Just 5 minutes ago, Troy Nehls, a Republican from Texas, walked out of the meeting, and NBC News reports he's not sure Republicans will unify behind their speaker nominee or that the loser will go quietly. So things not really moving along smoothly, at least according to NBC News at this meeting this morning.
So the Republican conference, as they call it, which is all made up of all the Republicans in the House of Representatives, of which there are like 205 or so, 6, or how many are there?
Of what, Republicans?
Republicans in the House.
I think it's 212.
212.
Okay, well, anyway, they have to pick their leader. That's what we're talking about. Their leader, because they're in the majority, becomes the House Speaker. The House of Representatives Speaker is the third most powerful person constitutionally in America. By that, I mean if the president is incapable of doing his job, be a death or hospital or whatever, the vice president is incapacitated for whatever reason or unable to fulfill the duties of the presidency, then, we learn this in civics class, right? Then the House of Representatives Speaker becomes basically the commander-in-chief or the president. So it's a very, very powerful position in our federal government, that is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And the Republicans now are meeting, as you say, behind closed doors to try to decide
who to put up.
And it's been public that it's Steve Scalise, the congressman from Louisiana, and Jim Jordan, the congressman from Ohio, both put their names in the what do you call it, the hat or whatever.
Yeah.
Threw their hats in the ring.
Unless you think it's just not important, given everything else that's going on, what we're hearing is that the House cannot process any business until a speaker is elected. Now, I did talk to Gary Bauer the other day, who very energetically told me that there is some legislation that was passed before they deposed of Jim Jordan to fund Israel, to give some money to Israel.
Jordan.
Kevin McCarthy.
Before
Pretty
they got
big difference.
Yeah,
there.
I know. Sorry. Before they got rid of Kevin McCarthy. But that there is money that has been passed in the House. It is waiting for a vote in the Senate. And Chuck Schumer's hadn't been to this point motivated to pass it. But
what are you hearing? What are the chances that moderate Republicans, and I don't know how to characterize who's who, but moderate Republicans might work with Democrats to choose Hakeem Jeffries, who's the Democrat, the minority leader for Democrats. Is there any chance that Republicans who are angry...
Ed, I'm going to go full charismatic on you right here.
You rebuke
and
that?
I'm not going to receive that.
I rebuke that.
I'm not going to receive that possibility here.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a whole lot of chance.
Okay, but they would have to get behind one of two fairly conservative candidates for the speaker position in Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise.
Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan have both been in leadership positions in the Republican Party in the House of Representatives for some time now.
Yeah.
Both of those gentlemen, I think, are well respected among their peers. Mm-hmm. So either one of them, seems to me, could be elected. I don't know what the score is going to be, so to speak. I don't know how the vote's going to go. Well, obviously,
you think it will be one of those two?
I think it'll be one of those two. Scalise, as I say, he's been in the official leadership chain for a number of years now. I don't know. I remember meeting about an issue in his office with Tony Perkins 5 or 6 years ago. It was soon after he was shot at that baseball game. Remember, Scalise was shot and was crippled.
Yes.
Because I forgot the exact injury because of the bullet.
He's been in Congress since 2008. Steve Scalise.
So he sort of rose to leadership pretty quick there. What area of Louisiana is he from? Does it say here?
Yeah, well, it says that he is representative of the 1st District, which comprises land from the northern shore of Lake Pontchartrain. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yep.
South to the Mississippi River Delta. It covers most of New Orleans suburbs as well as a sliver of New Orleans itself.
It would be not New Orleans, Ed.
New Orleans?
Yeah.
New Orleans.
I know they got an S on there.
New Orleans.
That they use.
New Orleans.
You said New Orleans.
Did I?
Yeah, you
I was trying to get it out quickly. It wasn't a mistake. This is what I tried to tell my wife. It wasn't a mistake. You were forcing me to speak quickly. So
in French,
it's
you
your
don't
fault.
pronounce the S. Orléans.
Oh.
So there you go.
Let's take your word for that.
In Illinois, they got an S on there. Don't even need it.
It's true.
Am I right?
Yep.
Got to get it, amen.
Yeah, yeah.
Get an amen.
Man, listen, I know a lot about French and New Orleans because years ago, Applebee's, when we would go, they used to have that Nolans skillet.
Yeah.
Remember that?
That was good.
That was good. And they dropped it, and I haven't
Now
been
you
back
paid a price
since.
about 2 hours later.
Yeah.
But it was good while it went down.
I'm just letting you know, Applebee's, I haven't been back since you dropped the Nolans skillet.
Is that right?
Yep.
I don't have a degree in French, but I did eat at Applebee's last night.
That's right. That's right. All right. That's
anyway,
all
it'll be Scalise
say.
or Jim Jordan. That's the thinking, and it's important that once that's decided, that one or the other gentleman, I imagine it'd be a close vote. I would imagine it'd be a close vote, but one of the other, that they be support, and I'm sure they will. They'll be supportive of the winner. The loser, in quotes, the one who doesn't win will be supportive of the one who does, because they need a united front.
I think they'll.
They do need a united front. I'm talking about the Republicans right now.
Or Republican, as I say.
You know, there's something else here. I think a lot of people on our side, once you get into a leadership position, like Scalise has been in. Now, Jim Jordan's in a leadership position, too, in that he's the chairman of a very powerful committee.
Judiciary.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But he was not like number 3. Not one, number 2, number 3, McCarthy. And I don't know, was Scalise number 2, basically?
Mm-hmm. So.
And I don't know who's number 3. Well, the guy who took over the speaker's chair, the bow tie guy.
Oh, I think
his
name? They call him the Hammer.
Boy, did you see him with that? Wow.
I don't mean to sound disrespectful. I think, is Henry his last name?
Let me look it up.
I think he's either from South Carolina or, anyway, he's in leadership too, in the Republican House of Representatives. But just because somebody's in leadership doesn't make them a bad guy. Okay, I think a lot of times our side, immediately when they take a leadership role, they become a.
Here's the
Patrick McHenry, Representative Patrick McHenry.
McHenry, I said Henry.
Of North Carolina. He's been serving in
North Carolina.
But he's not. This is the Republican leadership, according to House.gov. The majority leader is Steve Scalise. The majority whip, which is the second position, is Tom Emmer. And then Elise Stefanik is the conference chairman, and the Republican Party policy conference chairman is Gary Palmer, not the golfer.
Also, Scalise is dealing with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
He's dealing with that. Now, I don't think it's life-threatening, at least right now, for him. But it is a serious situation that he's having to deal with on a personal health level. So, who knows? We should find out today, right?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to come to some kind of a conclusion
Yep.
on this. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Ed, give people that phone number again and ask them what we're doing. Tell them what we're doing here.
All right. It is our fall share-a-thon, and we twice a year for 3 days.
3 days.
3 days in April, 3 days in October. We don't beg for money for our radio network all year
No, but
long.
we will if we have to.
We will if we have to. So
we haven't had to do so far.
It behooves our listeners
Yes, it does.
to give as generously as you can.
So we don't beg.
And I'm going to tell you about an incentive, a premium here in just a moment. But here's the number to call. if you'd like to give to our Fall Share-a-thon. 877-616-2396. Let me give that number to you again in case you missed it.
I'll do it in stereo with you. Go
okay.
ahead.
877-616-2396. You can give safely and securely online if you'd like at afr.net. Now, here are our Fall Share-a-thon premium options. That's right, folks. We give you options, just like Applebee's does, or used to, okay?
Behind curtain number one, what do we have, Ed?
For a one-time gift of $150 or more, you will receive a CD of Hilarious Highlights Volumes 9 and 10. That is the newest CD from Trivia Friday on American Family Radio. Or if you become a Great Commission partner with a monthly gift of $30 or more, I'll explain what a Great Commission partner is in just a moment. But with a monthly gift of $30 or more, you will receive not only that aforementioned CD, Hilarious Highlights, Volumes 9 and 10, you will also receive the new book, 100 Bible Questions and Answers for Families. That was written by Dr. Alex McFarland and Brother Bert Harper. They are co-hosts for Exploring the Word, heard on American Family Radio every weekday at 3 p.m. Central Time. Now, I did mention becoming a Great Commission partner, and it's very easy to do. You simply give every month via debit card, credit card, or a bank draft. It's easy for you. You don't have to remember. It's beneficial for us because we're able to budget more efficiently by knowing exactly how much money is coming in. But if you become a Great Commission partner with a monthly gift of $30 or more, you will receive those two premiums, 100 Bible Questions and Answers for Families and Hilarious Highlights. You also, if you're a Great Commission partner, I've mentioned this before, you can go to our streaming platform anytime you want, streaming.afa.net, and you can watch any or all of the videos and documentaries we have there. There's a lot of information, resources. It's a plethora. As I said yesterday, a cornucopia of resources available there at our streaming platform by becoming a Great
cornucopia. Is that the horn with all the
a horn of plenty?
Is that what it means?
That's what it was.
And it's out this time of year, especially. You can see it out there.
That's right.
Horn with the pumpkin in it, and
and all the vegetables coming out.
Yeah.
Is
that what you call it, cornucopia?
I prefer the Italian cornucopia. It's not pumpkins and stuff, but it's salamis and heads of cheese and Italian peppers.
Real healthy.
Real
healthy diet for you there.
Yeah. What is it with Ed and food?
He's Italian, man.
Keeps coming
He's
back
Italian.
It is right. It is 10 minutes to noon.
I just
he's
come back to
hungry
it.
too.
He's half Italian, half Greek, man.
That's right.
So that food's like a big
My
deal.
whole existence is now. I will say it is all about Jesus. But second on that list,
you better say your wife.
I better say family.
Family. You better say that, even though you're not thinking that. I saved you right there.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, okay. So
anyway,
God,
I'm being
so
silly.
there's in Ed's life, there's God, then family, then the Bruins, and then food.
Well, that's a call. That's a tough call.
It is a tough call.
Food and the Bruins
and food.
That's
don't forget. I got to say nation. I got to say church. All those things have got to come. But then
all those
food,
stuff.
All this. Then food and hockey.
Okay.
But
who is the House Speaker? That doesn't rank if at food or hockey.
What now? The House Speaker? That's my wife.
You just got through talking about
not that house.
Oh, the House Speaker's your wife. I get it. I see what you did there.
That's right.
He did that one without a private caucus to determine
That's
it.
true. I think we better move on.
Yeah, we better move on.
All right.
Play a listener testimony, and we'll come back to Steve.
This is James Carter in Robstown, Texas. I'm a longtime AFR listener. I have the app on my phone now. I work by myself in my truck all day long, and the scripture that came to mind was, as iron sharpens iron, so a brother sharpens the countenance of another, and you guys sharpen me. It's great to be able to spend time with y'all all day while I'm working. I'm in and out of the truck, and you guys have some great programming and great people there. And y'all love the Lord, and I love the Lord, and it's great to spend time with y'all. So I hope it is encouraging to you to know that you got people like me who you touch every single day. Thank you.
Wow.
Well, thank you, brother.
I love our listener testimony.
See, you notice that he mentioned the app.
Yes, that's
boy.
That was a game changer.
Hey, the app, the numbers keep going up and up and up on the use of our AFR app. So a lot of people are taking advantage of that, especially if they listen on the radio and then they get out of one of our radio signal range, then they can switch over to the app. Steve Jordahl, Tim Wildman, Fred Jackson, and Ed Vitagliano. All right, Steve, what's your next story?
All right, be very careful, folks, when you're watching and listening to the news, except if you're listening to AFN and this radio station, because there's a little bit of both the major journalism's voices in the United States and in Canada, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, which we'll make Fred answer for, and the Associated Press, in their style books, which is the rule book of how they write stuff, have decided that they will not use the word terrorist anymore. The word terrorist, and I'm assuming terrorism, is no longer part of the lexicon, except for some very, very narrow exceptions. So you're not hearing anything about the Hamas being a terrorist group.
They're being called militants.
Militants or freedom fighters or whatever other euphemism they want to use.
So, Fred, when we talk about the Associated Press style guide or the style guide for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, we're talking about the fact that you can, as a journalist, you can't write a story if you work for if you work for the New York Times or any of these major outlets. You can't write a story and get it published without it first being approved under the umbrella of these style guides, right?
Yeah, the AP style guide is known in the business as the Bible of words that are to be used. And it's not only the AP standalone organization, it's all the major networks use AP. The major newspapers across the country, they all subscribe to AP. We do subscribe to AP, but we in our contract are allowed to edit.
Which is stories, a lot. The stories that run on American Family News.
Which is I spend a good chunk of my day going through AP and removing their political correctness. And
but just so people know, but if you don't have AP, you can't have access to any of the facts of a news story at all. So
they are the world's largest news organization.
Right. So they almost got a monopoly.
Yes.
But you have a good eye for understanding if they start editing a story to take a political slant,
which they do,
to the left, which you have to watch for all the time. I just wanted people to understand the situation.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I think sometimes the thinking on putting that, the AP added that to their style book back in 2022. And their reasoning, one of the reasoning is that somebody's, terrorist is a freedom fighter.
Right.
All right. So they're equating what Hamas did the other day to freedom fighters. So that's why they decided to use the term militants.
Yeah.
Because terrorism became offensive, and it was really linked to Islamic terrorism.
Right.
And that's when they're
But that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yes. That's just fact.
It is. But they were worried about offending Muslims.
They don't mind saying white nationalist, even though
of course they don't.
They probably don't mind calling them terrorists either.
Well, it's the same thing with they will not use the term pro-life.
Right.
AP style books.
Anti-choice.
It's pro-choice is
and
what
anti-abortion or
and
anti-choice.
anti-abortion. Yes, that's what they'll use. So they have their little Bible of phrases that they say are not allowed or allowed.
Well, what I was going to say was, we don't have time to discuss this much, but when you say white supremacy, I'm going to say, if you're going to take the thing that you shouldn't say Muslim extremists, then you should not say white supremacist. You should just say supremacist.
Yes.
Tim, you and your logic.
Well,
they don't use logic on
they don't. What I'm saying is they don't mind castigating all white people by using the
or
phrase
calling parents at school board meetings domestic terrorists.
Right. Calling parents. Yeah. So I mean,
wait a minute. They use the word terrorist.
I know. They will use it.
Isn't that something?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody who's called in. We're having a wonderful Share-a-thon response yesterday and today. God bless you if you called in and made a donation, made a gift. And we say thank you. And keep listening to Share-a-thon. Todd Herman or Fred.
Todd Herman today, me tomorrow.
I'm a real boy.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Heaven changes everything.
Our citizenship is in